Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today we've got a slightly different type of video for you. We actually have a topic of discussion and we actually have a guest for the first time on our channel. This is David, aka the parrot teacher from Best Behaved Birds. Hello David.
Hi Ashley, thanks for having me on the channel. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for coming. So could you please just explain what the parrot teacher or the channel of the parrot teacher and what Best Behaved Birds actually is and what it is that you guys do?
Cool. I'm David, as Ashley just introduced, and I run a channel and Instagram called The Parrot Teacher. And what I do is produce educational parrot training content on a myriad of different topics and husbandry advice. I specialize in small parrots, mostly cockatiels, conures, budgies, that sort of thing. Although both me and my partner Sophie, who's our bird nerd Sophie, have a lot of experience with all sorts of parrot species due to professional experience, personal experience, blah, 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 blah. We also run a business called Best Behaved Birds, which is a consultancy, and we help people with all sorts of parrot related problems. We do specialize with parrots in people's houses, in the home, rather than collections, although we do work with them occasionally, purely because we feel that people need the most help at home, and those are the people that are most neglected by the professional training community. There's lots of help for those, lots of training work going on in zoos, and like the welfare is amazing, but it's not quite as good for normal people, and we want to improve that.
Thank you very much. And if you have watched any of my videos or any of my previous videos, you will know that I do talk about the parrot teacher and bird nerd Sophie a lot for anyone looking into parrot education when it comes to feeding, when it comes to training, anything like that. I always recommend you guys, as well as a couple of other channels. So it is wonderful to have you on today. Thank you very, very much for this phone, for I'm about to call it a phone call, this conversation today. The topic of conversation today is actually beginner birds because I have seen a lot of places on YouTube, I've seen a lot of websites suggest that Pionus parrots, conures, cockatiels, budgies, as well as a couple of other species, make great starter birds or beginner birds for people that have never owned a parrot before. And as owners of Pionus parrots and owners of cockatiels and conures, I thought it would be a good conversation to discuss what it's actually like living with these species and do they really make good starter birds? First of all, I don't think any bird is a starter bird. What would you say?
I don't like the term starter bird either, and neither does Sophie. Sophie's got much stronger opinions than me about it, but I don't really like it either. The word starter bird puts a label on that bird immediately, like it's something you start off with and then you graduate to something more difficult or bigger. It's a pet. It's a lifelong commitment. Even the smallest budgie can live for 20 years under the right circumstances. That is not something you start with. You know, there's nothing wrong with getting one of these species like a conure, a budgie, a cockatiel, and they're probably a little bit easier than getting a macaw, but you should get one because you want one and because you like that species. So the whole term starter bird is a bit of a misnomer. And as we're probably going to lead on to, just because they're labeled starter bird does not mean they're actually easier in many ways. Even the smallest parrot can be as difficult as the largest one, and they're all parrots. Some people try to say that cockatiels and budgies aren't parrots. They are. They are parrots. It's physical traits that make them parrot, not their size, which is a physical trait, but you get what I mean. It's just important to keep that in the back of your mind. If you hear someone say, oh, this bird's easy or this is a starter bird, expectations that's setting up. So is that setting you up for success for your bird?
I agree completely. I hear a lot of people say the good old stereotype that Pionus parrots are quiet, Pionus parrots are easy, Pionus parrots are not hard to handle, etc., etc. And I hope that over the course of my channel, I've actually been able to prove otherwise, as I'm sure many of my viewers will actually confirm they are not as quiet as they first appear. So it is actually one of those that I don't believe any bird is a true starter bird, any bird is a beginner bird, because all of these species that people claim to be beginner birds and starter birds, as you said, can live 20 plus years. Pionus parrots, for example, live 35 plus years. And to this date, I have not found anything about them that makes them easy in any way, shape, or form. Yes, they are very different to owning some of the bigger species like macaws and cockatoos, but I personally wouldn't say they're in any way, shape, or form easier. Now, I do actually have a friend who appears a lot on my channel, Fruity Flock, and she has conures as well. And she would be in agreement that conures are definitely not an easy bird to live with. What would you say from living with your conures?
I would definitely say they're not easy birds to live with. They have so many amazing looking at personality traits as a generality and as individuals. Because don't forget, we have to look at every bird as an individual. We can generalize about birds. We can say this species has X, Y, and Z trait like quiet, etc. But individuals will have their own learning experience. They will be very different. But conures, yeah, they're not easy. For in our business, we frequently have consultations with conures, not just because we specialize in them, because people struggle with them because of the information that's given out online about them being cuddly for everyone. Oh, they're so quiet, they're so easy, and then this person's got a screaming conure, and they're like, well, what do I do about it? Because I'm not prepared for it. I was told something completely different. So I would agree with Fruity Flock. They're not easy, and we have six conures. We have two cockatiels who aren't rescues, and we have six conures who are all rescues with all very different histories and problems. And my goodness, they can be challenging, especially the crimson bellies, because they're like a whole nother level of difficulty. You know, we're talking like the difference between Final Fantasy and Dark Souls in difficulty, you know. And I'm generalizing there as well because some are really good, but yeah, I don't, like you said, I don't think such a thing as an easy bird. Maybe it's easy individuals due to their personality and temperament and learning history, but as a species, nah, no easy species, not conures
Mm.
either.
Definitely not. I know my friend, again, my friend Fruity Fox, she's had quite a few bites from her conures, especially during hormone season. And even she said on several occasions she would not recommend them to anyone, even considering a conure, because of how feisty they can be. I believe cockatiels can be quite similar, can't they? Cockatiels can be just as feisty, well, when provoked.
I think, for me personally, I find cockatiels easier, and that is not because they're easier birds, it's because I have like decades more. I have a lot of experience with conures, but I have even more experience with cockatiels. So like it's sort of second nature for me. And yes, they can be very feisty. But one of the great things about these parrots, and cockatiels have a cheat code which helps, is their crest. The cockatoo family has that lovely crest, and that helps you to identify their moods are much easier than a conure. A conures body language to a lot of people is a lot more subtle because you're looking at their mane. Their mane will ruffle up, you know, they'll start their sass and posturing. Whereas a cockatiel, you'll see that crest go up, and that's same for cockatoos, who are regarded as one of the more difficult, more challenging birds. But if you learn to read your bird's body language, while I wouldn't say it makes them easier as a species, it does mean you can start predicting those behaviors and avoiding those bites. Now, we very seldom get bitten purely, I like to say purely due to our expertise as trainers, but more because we've gotten to know our birds as individuals and we watch these signs. We film our interactions with them. We watch, we're like, oh, okay, Scampi was really overstimulated when that orange toy was brought in the room. So if I hold an orange toy, he's going to come and nail me. It's very good to know your individual bird and watch them. And I've got some generalized guides which will point you in the right direction for cockatiels and conures, and that cheat code crest will help, but learning your bird's individual traits will help you a lot. And that's where we go back to they're not starter birds, they're not generalizations, they are individuals.
Agree completely. Pionus parrots are actually very similar in that manner. I would say Pionus parrots have easier body language to read than green cheek conures or than crimson belly conures, but they have a very similar thing where the cockatiel's crest goes up. Pionus parrots flop up their feathers in a similar manner. Nowhere near as obvious as the crest. The crest makes it very obvious, but they still have that same fluff up. It's very similar to a conure, as in it can be miscommunicated as either excitement and happiness or anger. You have to be very, very careful which part of the rest of the body comes into play, I find, with the smaller feathered species. You have to watch the body language as a whole to get the idea of what's going on. But I love that idea of actually videoing your birds during most scenarios in general to work out their little triggers and their clicks. Because I know for Quaffle, my white-capped Pionus, she has a thing for gloves. If we walk in the room with blue nitrile gloves and try and clean her cage, ooh, we are then running for our lives, because she will chase us across the room in the most laziest manner possible. She will do as little flying as she can, but she will chase us across the room to bite our fingers. And she has punctured our fingers on multiple occasions when trying to clean her cage with those darn gloves. I agree. Every bird is different. Every bird has its own individual traits, and every bird is unique and are very, very, very interesting and challenging in their own ways. In regards to body language is different for every species in general. What's cockatiel and conure body language like?
Cockatiel body language, we've got the crest again, which helps you. And you raised another interesting point that certain behaviors, when taken out of context, so you may watch a video and say, oh, okay, when the feathers flop around the head, that means something. But if you look at the context of all the feathers, that can mean something completely different. And that's often where a point of confusion happens. And that's why the videoing helps, and you obviously get to know your bird. And for them, they're communicating stuff to us very, very clearly. But to us, we don't speak bird, so we have to learn. But anyway, I'm digressing. So with conures, what's their body language like? I love the way I like to describe it. It's not a very scientific way. It's sassy. I like to describe our conures as very sassy. They have very sassy, liberate motions. They like to dance as well. They will posture. There's a lot of posturing going on with conures, especially when they are getting a bit funny or hormonal, maybe territorial, sometimes even playful. One of my absolute favorite conure things is dancing. Now, not all conures will do this, but some will bob their heads and march up and down. Others will do a little dance. We've got this great one for Pickles, which we put on social media a while back. The funny thing about dancing, though, is as charming as it is, and while it can just mean that they're happy and enjoying their environment in an anthropomorphic way, like we're putting our emotions onto them, it can also mean they're overstimulated and excited. So you have to be very careful and knowing the context of your conure. Cockatiels wise, apart from their crest, I'm trying to struggle to think of like specific ones that don't apply to other species. Hissing and hecking, I suppose, would be quite unique to them. A lot of parrots will hiss to warn other birds and humans. Cockatiels will sometimes hiss for other reasons. I did a video on it a while back, and the hecking is my favorite. Like they were and then they'll like go to beat you, but they won't bother. And it's like their way of expressing that they're annoyed. But conversely, Fish, one of our cockatiels, does it because he's enjoying something, he's interested in it. And it's quite annoying to try and work out which one it is. So again, you have to look at that context and what his crest is doing and everything else. But he just loves sometimes sitting on my shoulder. I almost said a swear word there accidentally. He loves sitting on my shoulder and just going. And it's not aggy way of doing it. He's doing it for fun. Bonking things. They love to bonk things. That's a very charming cockatiel trait. A lot of people point it out. Generally, it means they're very excited or they are marking their territory. You can do it when they're hormonal. Now I'm talking about it, just all spilling out. Snapping. They love to snap their beaks. Again, now in your face. Again, that can also mean curiosity, but it can also mean hormones, so be careful. There's loads of them now I think about it, blimey. Then you've got really common ones as well, the fluffing up, the sort of general dancing, the wing, oh my good, the heart wings. That's a form of display behavior they love to do. Again, that can mean happy or hormonal, depending on context, so be careful to not start trying to hump your arm afterwards. That would be definitely a no-no to encourage. That was a big ramble on them, sorry.
No, it's good. I find it very interesting to learn about other species, especially when, as I said, a lot of people recommend the species that we own as beginner birds or birds for people that have never owned a bird before. It's good in a way to actually learn about those different species because I have a lot of people contact me on a lot of my social medias actually saying like, oh, I'm thinking of getting a Pionus or a Conya. I'm thinking of getting a Pionus or a cockatiel. Which one would you prefer? And I don't have that knowledge in order to give to them. So I can't say you should choose a Pionus over a cockatiel for these reasons, or you should choose a Conya over a Pionus for these reasons. It's not that simple. There's a lot that goes into it. And I feel that one thing that everyone should do is if you are considering getting a species of any form, do your research and look for people that already own these species. Look for people with channels like mine or yourselves with people who are experienced in these species and have that knowledge and information available to you or that you can contact and get that information. One thing I would actually ask from your expertise, bringing a trainer and the knowledge that you have over behavior, what are some of the things that you would suggest to people who are thinking of getting a bird and are looking at these particular species? What's the kind of things you would suggest they research before actually looking at which species they should get?
Okay, so the very first thing is what you just said about researching, doing your research, finding some places is great advice. Find some people who have them, learn about them. But the other thing I'd add to that is do it from multiple sources. I've increasingly encountering trainers, YouTubers, etc. say, come to me, just come to me. And I despise that advice because if you come to one person and they're wrong or their individual anecdotal experience isn't comprehensive, you're not going to learn much. You're going to learn their experience and nothing else. You want to go to multiple sources. And while we may be shooting ourselves in the foot business-wise by saying this, I feel it's better for parrots and their potential owners in general. Go to multiple sources. Look for consensus of opinion. Say, for example, one cockatiel channel says, I reckon you should push your finger into your cockatiel to step up. And you think, well, hang on, okay, that sounds like great advice because I don't know any better, but I'm not sure about that. Then you go to other channels and they say, well, we don't really necessarily recommend that because that's forcing your cockatiel to do something which could harm your relationship. Instead, we recommend maybe training a step up behavior with a positive reinforcer, a treat. Maybe that's better. And then when you see that repeatedly, that first bit of advice you read, which initially seemed great because you didn't know any better, you suddenly start thinking, well, hang on, that doesn't sound like the best way to do it. Go to loads of different sources. And when you're looking up cockatiel advice, another great place to start is natural history. A lot of people seem to skip this bit. and I find it's quite useful. It's not going to help you train your cockatiel in your house, but it will give you a good starting point to sort of work things out. Say, for example, you take cockatiels. So cockatiels, they like ground feeding in the wild. So while they're going to happily eat out of your bowl, you can provide them a foraging tray, which they'll enjoy feed from on the ground. It's fun, it's enriching for them, it's natural. So you're simulating that natural environment. A conure, they're more of a split. So they're a canopy feeder and they'll feed from the ground, although mostly towards the canopy. Then you can provide more enrichment items that involve foraging on an above ground level, but then also explore a little bit of the ground. You can learn a lot by natural history, which will help inspire you. Then you can take that knowledge on and then you can almost query what everyone else is saying and be like, well, hang on, that doesn't necessarily tally. That person says I should provide a treat stick with seeds on it, but I know my conure should be eating all sorts of things. So maybe I'll look at some other sources.
No, that is really, really great advice. And even me for Pionus, I seem to have somehow got this reputation of I'm a bit of a Pionus expert, and I do try and stipulate in all my videos, I am no expert. I am simply someone who's done a lot of research and I have hands-on experience, but I am in no way, shape, or form an expert. I'm just going off what I've learned. And I will actively promote other channels on this channel. I'll actively promote Stella and Charlie, who is another Pionus owner. I don't promote them enough, but Parrot Bliss, she has multiple species of parrots and does really good videos on them. I obviously promote yours and Sophie's channel quite a lot. I really encourage people to try and get different information from different sources for that same reason, because if you do just learn from one source, that source may not necessarily be correct in the first place, or vice versa, that source might actually be correct and then you'll learn the wrong way to do things by going to someone else. So it's very much a balancing act, and it's very good advice to actually get your research from multiple sources. I highly, highly agree with that. One thing that a lot of people do actually ask me as well is when they're looking for a companion for their birds. So they may already have a cockatiel or already have a conure or already have a Pionus, and they're trying to consider an alternative species. And I usually get the question, should I get a cockatiel? Should I get a conure for my Pionus companion? Or will a Pionus be able to bond with a cockatiel? Will they be able to bond with a conure? What's your experience of having two of these species, particularly the conures and the cockatiels? How have you found they get on with each other in general?
Generally, they get on quite well. One thing before I say that as well, though, you don't call yourself an expert, and that's one good sign of someone who knows a fair bit about stuff when they say they're not experts, because the word expert is thrown around a lot. Because you're always learning, you're always improving. So you clearly have a lot of knowledge about Pionus. I wouldn't downsell that. You've done your research, you've had them for a long time, so I wouldn't sell yourself short there, and that's a positive thing. And someone who does say look at other sources is a good sign to me. It proves they're kind of less in it for the money and more in it because they care about the birds and what's happening to you. Keep that in the back of your mind when you hear people say only trust me, because that's a warning red flag for me. With regards to mixing species, me and Sophie tend to say that it's best to have the same species where possible, because that's where you're going to get the most enrichment, the most benefit. You can mix certain species, especially if they're similar sizes, but when you're introducing another bird into your house, you need to approach it with caution regardless of species, because your bird may be happy on its own. It may see you as the flock, and it may not react necessarily well to the other bird. Just because they're the same species, it's like, just because I'm a human doesn't mean I'm going to get on with everyone I meet on the street. It's the same way. So you have to be prepared for the fact they may never get on. You may have to do a lot of training work. You may have to do a lot of work around it. You may always have to house them separately for the entirety of their lifespans. Those are things that you have to be prepared for. And if you do get a different species, it can work with some places. Like, for example, our cockatiels and conures, they coexist. Olive, for example, she's quite happy feeding next to the cockatiels. So is Pickles and Scampi. The Crimsons are indifferent to them. Louis just wants snacks when he's out, so he doesn't care. But it's not quite the same. So yes, you can. And also, in certain circumstances, you can have different species who get on very well, but it just needs to be approached with caution and, again, a research side of things. Just as much research as possible and being prepared for the worst. We've seen some great bonding experiences where Olive and Charlie, we took on Charlie, Olive and him bonded very, very quickly. Pickles and Scampi, two of our green sheet rescues, it took 8 months to bond them, and that was a lot of work. Now they get on great, but it took all that work. So be prepared for all that stuff as well. You're going to have to step up and be involved in that bonding process, do lots of training, and also maybe get bitten, separating them if you have to. One thing we started recommending more often to people who have problems with conures or other birds landing on top of other cages is a sheet of clear acrylic with protectors on the side, child protectors. That way, if the bird lands on top of the cage, it's not disturbing the birds inside because they can see straight through it. There's no light effects, doesn't really harm them. The corners are protected as well. And the bird, if it lands on top, no feet are going to get bitten immediately. It's a great thing to have initially until your bird gets used to it, because most birds are territorial of their cages.
Yep, there it is.
And if a stranger lands on that, they're probably going to nip it. So if you have this, it can really help get you over that early step where you may just miss a moment where they fly over, and it avoids you having a horrible vet bill.
That is brilliant advice. I didn't even think of that. That is genius. That is something I wish I had in place when I first brought Lyra home. That is brilliant. And actually, my two girls are actually a fantastic example of how just because they're the same species doesn't mean they're going to bond. Quaffle is very much a happy solo bird, and we got our Lyra because we thought she was going to be lonely because we do go out of the house a lot. We do leave the house for several hours and we do get worried that she is lonely because she is so highly bonded to us. So we got Lyra for companionship, and we knew when we got her, there has to be a plan B. When we get her, we are not getting rid of her. She is not getting rehomed unless something majorly bad happens. So what is the plan B for if they don't get on? We had to get second cages. We had to arrange plans. We had to work out training schedules. We had to work out who was going to spend more time with which bird. We had to work out, are they going to be able to be in the same room? How far apart can we put the cages? Are we going to need to rearrange the entire living room to accommodate the two cages being away from each other? Are they going to be able to be out at the same time? Are they going to need to be fed separately? Are they even going to be able to be let out of their cages in the same room while the other one is in their cage? There were so many things to consider when we first brought Lyra home, and it is definitely something that everyone should consider. If you are thinking of getting a second bird or introducing a second bird, think of the worst. A lot of people say like, oh no, don't plan for the worst, like the worst isn't going to happen. The worst could happen when it comes to this situation, and it could be the difference between a living bird and a dead bird, sadly. I don't really like to use that term, but it is sadly true.
No,
Or
it's
even
true.
your bird losing its toes, as you very wonderfully pointed out. There's so much to consider with these little creatures. Why do we do this to ourselves?
I don't know. I don't know, honestly. And if you have different sized birds, some people want a mix like a macaw and a cockatiel, and it's like that's not a very sensible thing. And that you could, yeah, as you said, I don't like to sorry that sort of stuff either. One other thing I wanted to mention, and something that me and Sophie are starting to say a little bit more, purely because I feel the rhetoric's gone the complete other direction. If you have a solo bird, and then you made a very sensible choice there, getting another bird because you're conscious of the fact that you're going to be out a lot and you want companionship for that bird, and also you had your plan B, which is amazingly sensible. It's just something I wish more people would consider. But don't let
Same.
shame you for having a solo bird. Me and Sophie started saying to a lot of people who get shamed a lot on forums, it's better to have a solo bird who is loved and taken care of in a house than having a pair of birds that are neglected in another house. Is it ideal
Highly
to have a
agree.
pair of birds, same species companionship? We think yes. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it ourselves. You know, it's a lot of extra work, but we do it because that's great. But if you can't do that, you are that bird's flock. If you're prepared to step up and do all that work, make all that extra effort, provide the foraging opportunities, interact with that bird, do that stuff, there's nothing necessary to say that bird will not be happy. There's certain things you'll have to plan for and adapt in your approach. I had again an interview with Sandra on Poodles and Parrots recently about it, and we discussed solo birds versus flock birds. Sorry, solo birds versus pairs of birds. And she does an amazing job of providing so much enrichment for her bird that I was looking at, I was thinking, how many amazing opportunities this bird may not have those opportunities elsewhere. So don't let people shame you for having a solo bird, but do make sure you're doing enough for it to provide everything that it needs.
Highly agree with that. And I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that if I was able to be home more often, and for example, I only had a part-time job maybe, or if I was only going to be out of the house for a couple of hours a day, Quaffle would have quite happily stayed a solo bird her entire life. She had no interest in other birds. It's similar to your two. It took her nearly a year to actually accept Lyra. It was a long, steady process of having to do communal feeding, having to do positive interaction, training them at the same time, always putting them in a positive situation together. So they only ate together, they only got trained together, trying to make every single possibility a positive experience just so they could tolerate each other. Because Lyra, bless her, she wanted to be best friends with Quaffle straight away. She was ready to snuggle up, she was ready to cuddle, and Quaffle was having none of it. She's never been a bird. She's always seen herself as a human, I swear. She's such a silly bird. And it is true. Sometimes I do say to people as well, is not necessarily whether or not your bird needs a second bird, but can you as the owner handle a second bird? I don't know how you do it with your six, eight, I think
Yeah.
you have, isn't it?
And the fact they're rescues and they come from different circumstances, I personally feel we probably went a bit far, but purely because we had a similar attitude to you. Once we take them on, we're going to stick it out. Our living room is basically our bird room now because that's the only way they can have the space and enrichment they need. We basically did it because I don't know why I'm talking about this, but I suppose I may as well. Some of them to go into the rescue system and be stuck there because, for example, Kipling and Louis only got one leg, and Kipling's an extremely exceptionally difficult case. And I hate to say that because generally, most training that I talk about works for everyone. But because his past is so traumatic and he's had so many difficulties, he's a struggle. I'll have to admit, even professional trainers struggle sometimes, especially here. Like if you're in an aviary in a zoo, you can do your target training through that aviary bars, and that bird's going to have all that space, and you don't have to let it out. And when we're here, for that bird to have a quality of life, it needs a big cage, it needs to come out, it needs to do all sorts of other things. So it makes it more complex. And so we have to provide that for him, but we have to be very mindful of the way he is and make sure that everything's a positive interaction, like you just described. So it can be very challenging with multiple birds. We want to have a rescue one day, and I can only imagine how challenging that is. But at
Yeah.
least have those aviaries, hopefully. So fingers crossed one day, we'll keep trying, but be prepared for that challenge. And there's nothing wrong with preparing for the worst, because then you'll be pleasantly surprised when they do bond very quickly, like Charlie and Olive, and you're like, yay, they're getting on well, and we can have them out at the same time and they can snuggle up together.
Oh, it is. It's so nice just to be able to have them coexist in the same room. It's just heaven. And even then, my girls don't necessarily coexist. They coexist most of the time. And that's sometimes all you can expect. I do say this to some people, is sometimes you just have to accept that so long as they tolerate each other's presence, that can sometimes be good enough.
We
It's
say the same thing. We say exactly the same thing. Tolerance is the minimum you can achieve. You can at least achieve tolerance.
Yeah, if you can at least achieve tolerance, you've done well. You've
Yeah.
done darn well. If they bond, 20 times better. Although I do also know several other people who own conures and cockatiels, as well as other species, whose birds have bonded with new flock mates to the point of danger. That's
Yeah.
the only way I can explain it, is danger, because they've bonded to a point where anyone that comes near them will be murdered. Or will just be attacked and chased. It can be a bit frustrating. Bonding can be great, but if it goes too far the wrong way, you can then have other problems that you may not necessarily anticipate.
Because that's another thing we feel is a myth, like the whole if you have two birds, then they're going to hate you thing. And there's only one context I say that's true, and that's when you let the hormones go so far that it gets to a nesting point. That point, they will attack you for approaching. Before that, us as humans, we can become integrated to that flock. We can do some extra work, and it's just more about doing more of that positive reinforcement work and getting them to share you, and also you to share them. So you can do training around that as well, proximity exercises. I won't bore you guys with how much there is you can do. It's complex in jargon, but quite simple in concept. And I don't want to like rattle it all out. Even in that situation, there is some things you can do. But yeah, it can be challenging when they bond so successfully. You're like, oh, I have to suddenly do more work to make my relationship better with them.
Agree completely. So going back to the actual topic of conversation, I think we both detoured slightly there. As a general curiosity, knowing what you know now about birds and knowing what the birds you own are like now, is there another species you would like to own if it wasn't for the fact of your conures and cockatiels? Is there a species that isn't a conure or cockatiel that you would love, and why?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's two that come straight to mind. One's a budgie. I just really like them, and I know a lot about them as well. I find them very charming and funny. And the other one's probably an eclectus. I have never worked with one, and I love their coloration. I don't really care if it was male or female. I just think they're really cool, and one day I'd probably like to have one of them as well.
Oh, they are amazing birds. And Eclectus is one of the ones I was considering before I settled on Pionus. And they are such cute birds. They are so pretty and
Yeah.
cheeky and silly. And to be honest, we're probably setting a bad example right now of praising them, but we're praising them from a perspective of already being parrot owners and already knowing the highs and lows of parrot ownership. So we can look at other species and go, that's a nice bird.
Before I
But
even
that
like
doesn't necessarily mean they're a good bird.
Yeah, or that we have to take them on. We can say we like that. Like a person could say, "Oh, I like a conure, that is cute," but then they could research it. Like, for example, a budgie, I wouldn't have to bother researching because I know a lot about them already. But an eclectus, I have some knowledge of them. I would consider myself a noob and have to start from the beginning. I know all the training, but their individual species traits, I would want to learn a lot more about them before I took one on. But there's nothing wrong saying I like it. It's because I like the idea of it, not because I'm going to immediately go to the pet shop and grab one or go to the rescue and be like, right, taking you, you're done, you're coming home.
Completely agree. It's like for me, I love cockatoos. I adore cockatoos, and people call
Dangerous.
me crazy for that. But I used to own an umbrella cockatoo years and years and years ago. And knowing what I know now, I was both a good owner and a bad owner back then. I was a good owner in the sense that I let it out, I took it out and about. It was free flight trained, so I could take it on walks down the park. In that sense, I was a good owner, but I was a very uneducated owner. It was on an all seed diet. His cage was nowhere near big enough. I used to tell myself, he can spread his wings out. He comes out nearly all day. day. The only time he's really in there is at bedtime. So it's not the end of the world. But knowing what I know now, I did not give him nearly enough of what he needed. When I was actually researching getting a parrot, one of the reasons that settled me on Pionus was my lifestyle. That was actually the deciding factor, was a Pionus, from what I researched, was going to fit my lifestyle better than a cockatoo. And I love cockatoos with all my heart. They are still my favorite bird by a landslide, but I would never physically be able to own one because I don't have the correct lifestyle that they need in order to thrive.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. We can have accommodate so many small birds because we have this lifetime space for them. But I wouldn't feel comfortable having a cockatoo unless it was just literally the only bird I had in this place. Apart from the screaming, it'll probably come with it as well. But you have to consider your lifestyle and the sacrifices to your lifestyle you have to make for having a parrot. It's not just I'm going to have a parrot and it's going to stay in its cage, or I'm going to have a parrot and it's going to do what I want. You have to adapt, and there's lots of things that you have to do to change. And I wouldn't be too harsh on yourself because we all go through that part and we all have to learn. We don't just get born knowing how to like train parrots to learn. We learn and we gain experience in it. I know there's some mistakes I've made in the past, and I try and learn from them. I try not to beat myself up too much about them and just improve. Heck, even with the crimsons, I made some assumptions when we first got them that they'll be similar to green cheeks because the research I did, limited research, there's so little on them, pointed me in that direction. But I've learned since then, and I've learned a lot more about them, like the individual traits and stuff, and improved. It's just we're all growing and improving. I try not to be too harsh on people unless they do something really stupid or really obviously rubbish. Then I'll like go for them. But it's learning. It's all learning and improving. Just like you said, you're not an expert. I'm not an expert. We're all learning and improving. When will we be experts? Probably never, because I don't think there's such a thing. There's just people who know a lot and that we can learn from and improve our husbandry and the way we do things.
I agree with you completely there, without a doubt. One question that I have been asked several times, or one question that does come to mind. As we said, we had to make lifestyle changes in order to accommodate our birds. What kind of lifestyle changes for someone that hasn't yet got a bird and is considering a bird? What kind of lifestyle changes do you think they would have to do, or what the lifestyle changes they'd have to consider?
Major ones, obviously spending enough time with that bird. If you've got an aviary set up or a bird room and you have a pair, that can be reduced a little bit because we have to go to work, there has to be a middle ground. But even if you do, you have to make up the time when you're not there. But generally, you can't have candles anymore. Candles are no good for them. You can't burn them. Can't have a self-cleaning oven. Teflon's toxic to them. You have to consider what you eat around them in case they nick it. We tend to just have our birds have their an extra meal time, like a foraging time in their cages while we have our meals, or provide them their own version of it. You have to adapt your holidays. We can't go on holiday. No one can look after all our birds, so we can't do that anymore. There's lots of things you have to sacrifice, but at the same time, you gain as well. And if you're prepared for the trade-off, they can be great, amazing companions to have, amazing animals. But you have to be prepared for that trade-off to sacrifice some things to get the benefits of that.
I agree completely. I was very lucky. I already had a lifestyle that was compatible with parrots because I don't have scented candles. I don't use air fresheners. Always use stainless steel cookware, so Teflon was never an issue. I don't have a self-cleaning oven, and I don't really go on holiday, unfortunately. I wish I went on holiday more. Don't we all? Money and sacrifices that people do have to consider. And it's a sacrifice a lot of my bird friends have actually come to realize is you really can't appreciate just how many holidays you do not get to go on, how many days out you don't get to go on, weekends away you're going to miss or avoid. There are some holidays that you can take your parrots with you, just like you can take your dog. But the more parrots you get or the more birds you get, the less likely you're going on those holidays,
Yeah.
because people don't want birds, especially birds that like to destroy or make a mess or poo everywhere. They don't
Mess,
necessarily want them in their Airbnbs.
mess is a big one, the amount of mess they produce, and that's another lifestyle choice. If you don't like mess in your house, then you're gonna struggle with birds because they make a lot of mess in every single way.
Most definitely. OCD cleaners, birds are not for you. Especially when they're flying around the house. I've lost track of the amount of times I've walked down a hallway and just seen a stray poo along the wall and thought, when did that get there? And by this point, it's already solidified and you're trying to scrub it off the wall and the paint's coming off. I don't know whether or not you guys have experienced that with your lot, but it happens quite a lot when you're in a free-flighted house.
It happens a lot in the bird room, the bird living room, bird room. Mostly it's food. I mean, they tend to poo on the floor or in the substrate bases of their cage or trays, so that's easy enough to clean up. But Sophie loves, because we're big on their fresh food, and probably you are as well, I know. But she likes to give them messy fresh foods like strawberries or raspberries. Parrots love to fling stuff and throw it around. So they eat it and then they fling it on the wall. The lovely repainted bird, we use bird safe paint as well on it. The lovely white wall has now got stuff all over it and it's difficult to clean off. Maybe not the poop, but definitely other stuff. They love throwing around seed husks. Are like both fish and chip and Pickles loves to sit on my head when we're I'm working our setup there. And I just find seed husks in my hair and I'm shaking it all out and I'm just like, oh my God, where did that all come from? Or I did a meme on Instagram recently about Louis like smiling because I hid a poop in your hair. That's happened a few times. I'll just go and put my hand up there. I was like, oh, okay. Who did that then? I didn't even notice. Yeah, my goodness, the little monsters.
Oh, I've lost track of how many times. I've put it on TikTok and their Instagram a couple of times of Lyra doing Jason's hair with whatever toys she happens to be destroying at that time. And Jason just has this nest of a hair with bits of stick and bits of toy hanging out of it. And it's the funniest thing. It's a nightmare because 9 times out of 10, you've just done your hair. You've just brushed, you've just cleaned, you've got fresh out the shower. Within seconds, your hair is suddenly a bird's nest
Or
covered
even
in all sorts.
the clothing as well. Like I put on a fresh hoodie and then the next fish just like, all right, I'm gonna get on your shoulder. You know what, mate? You can have a little gift there. Oh, okay, then that's done. You know what? Most of them I just give up now. There's a great product called Poop Off if you guys haven't heard of it.
Oh
Wherever
yeah, we use it.
very helpful, but yeah, forget about having nice clothes. It's gonna always gonna be marked. They're gonna own you. That's their mark on you to know everyone knows you're their property after that. Oh,
It makes me laugh. Quaffle has actually developed this habit, and I don't know how she's developed it, but trying to train her out of it is nearly impossible. If she needs the toilet, I have become her toilet. I don't know how, I don't know why, and I am trying my darn hardest to train her out of it. But if she needs the toilet, she will fly to my shoulder and then poop on my shoulder and then fly off.
lovely.
Every time. Sometimes she'll stay on her perch, sometimes she'll stay on her cage. But a lot of the time, if she flies over to me to say hello, she will then do a poop on my shoulder before flying off. I still to this day do not know why. So we have baby wipes and all sorts on hand, blue roll on hand in every corner of the house. Because you never know when you're going to need to wipe something down.
It's the same here.
Oh.
We buy toilet roll specifically, like cheapo toilet roll specifically for bird stuff, just so we don't have to use tissues anymore because it's just not economical. And we have our bottle of F10 and Poop Off on hand most of the time as well for those messes. We swapped to hard flooring a while back, thank goodness. That makes life a lot easier. We used to have carpet, which is definitely not good around parrots. Hard flooring is so much better.
Highly agree. We currently have a rug down in the living room because we're hoping not to be here too much longer. So it's just keeping the floor from not getting damaged further. And it is the hardest thing to clean when it gets bird poo on it. It is so difficult. 9 times out of 10, we have to wait for the bird poo to dry and then basically hoover it off, rub it off like dirt. That's the easiest way to get it off when it lands on carpets. But thankfully, the carpet is actually multicolored, so you can't really tell when it's down there. I highly recommend anyone who owns birds should have laminate or vinyl flooring. It's just carpet and birds do not go well together. Very last question of the session then. I have a lot of people coming to my channel who are interested in getting a parrot, and no matter how much I try and dissuade them, no matter how much I recommend against it, they are still insistent on getting a parrot. What would you suggest to these people when it comes to choosing a bird or choosing a parrot for them? Is there any species that you would recommend, or is there anything in particular you would ask them to consider when looking for a species?
Luckily, we've kind of covered a lot of it in this session already, but I suppose as a summary, go for the species you're drawn to, not just because it's starter or labeled as whatever. What you're drawn to, do the research on it from multiple sources, but also consider your lifestyle. Are you prepared to make the lifestyle sacrifices for that bird? You take a small cockatiel. The only way I could possibly endorse easier is in that it takes up slightly less space. It still needs a big cage, and you shouldn't skimp on a cage because it's a small bird. It needs a big cage, a big space. However, if you've got a cockatoo, for example, or a macaw, it needs an even bigger cage. Most of the cages that are marketed towards these birds, they may proportionally look big, but they're not the right proportions for that bird and how much space they should have. So consider your lifestyle, go to the bird you're drawn into and do that research we talked about earlier. Like, consider all those different sources, learn as much as you can about them, and also consider rescuing as well. There's a lot of birds in the rescue system. We, again, don't go too hard on this. It's not rescue or else. If you are newer, maybe going to an ethical breeder is fine, but do consider rescuing because a lot of birds in the rescue system, a lot of them are completely fine. I don't believe in broken birds. Yes, some may have challenges that you'd have to work through, and kudos to you if you're willing to take that extra effort because they're all just animals that need loving families, basically.
I agree highly on all of those stuff. And great summary in the end. And just one final question that I know I have been asked. I have been asked a couple of times. If someone is actually considering getting a parrot and has done their research and has done the studying and has know for a fact that they can make the lifestyle changes and that they can tolerate, they can go through puberty, how much approximately would you say it would cost to start to get a parrot? For example, I know everyone's costs are different. The cost for me to get Lyra was very different to the cost for me to get Quaffle because I already had the cage, I already had the toys. I find this is something that people overlook entirely when getting a parrot is the cost involved. On average, how much would you say your cockatiels and your conures cost you, either monthly or yearly?
So I actually did a video on it. It's one of my least less popular videos for some reason, but like you, I thought that was something that's overlooked and very important to mention. It's called Are Parrots Expensive? And if you want a bit more on this, go to that.
I will make sure to link it below.
But there's like a massive variance in cost. If you're getting a budgie, the initial cost of a budgie isn't that expensive, £20 from some places, it's probably a bit more for a lot of people. But let's just take that as an example. But on top of that, you're going to want a decent cage. That's an initial startup cost. Okay. So you've got your cage, you've got your budgie. You're going to want purchase to go in that cage, decent ones, not just a couple of dowels. You're going to want toys, and that's a recurring cost as well, those toys and those purchases. You're going to want to have some bird safe cleaning. And you can just use vinegar if you want to skimp on this one, heavily diluted vinegar, that's fine, or jet washer. You're going to have a recurring cost of food. That's going to be a recurring cost, especially if you want to do it right. You shouldn't be just providing seed. And ironically, just providing seed is more expensive than doing it the healthier way. And I know a lot of people will tell you, oh no, just do seeds, just do pellets, is cheaper. Rubbish. Vegetables are much cheaper, although not in the UK probably right now, but that's just semantics. So you have your startup cost, which can vary massively, but it's still expensive even for a small parrot. Then you have your recurring costs. Then you have to put a bit aside for vet bills, because obviously you don't want to be stung by them. You're going to probably need to upgrade their cage at some point. I would struggle to put an exact figure, honestly, because it varies so much and it can be so expensive. So, watch that video, I guess, but almost like a joke. I kind of like give ranges, and the ranges are kind of stupid in some areas because they vary so much. But yeah, be prepared for an expensive thing and don't skimp is that would be the advice I'd give there.
No, highly agree. And I will make sure to link that video down below for anyone who is interested. They are expensive pets. It's like, I would argue that they're less expensive than dogs, depending on the dog. Some dogs you can buy a dog bed and a couple of toys and they're happy for the rest of their life. Other dogs you buy a new toy every day for them. Dogs can be just as expensive, if not more expensive, as parrots. But for the cages, for example, I've seen cages, good size cages. The cheapest one's about £200 to £300. And if you are having a macaw or an Amazon or a cockatoo, you're looking up to £700-800 for an indoor aviary in order to house them in safely. It can rake up a lot of money just for the startup cost for the bird. So please, if you are interested in, or if you are looking at getting a parrot and you are interested in how much you could potentially have to pay just to get the equipment and the requirements to allow them to live in your house, go check out the video that David has done about whether or not parrots are expensive. Highly recommend it. I have seen it myself and it is a very, very good video. But I believe that is all my questions for today, unless you can think, or unless there is anything else you want to add about conures, cockatiels, or Pionus being easier birds to live with and own.
We summarized everything perfectly. One other thing I would say with regards to the cost things, don't skimp. Don't go for the cheaper options. Don't skimp on that size of the cage, because if you do that, you're going to end up with potential problems down the line, which will cause you issues with behavioral problems because there's not enough space, etc. Yeah, that's the only thing I want to add there.
I would add to that is if you do skimp, you will end up buying the more expensive thing anyway.
Yeah.
So you would actually waste more money. But thank you very much for today, David. It has been absolutely wonderful to talk to you. We have also done a video on David's channel about Pionus parrots. So if you actually want to go and check that out, I will also leave a link to that video in the description box below. And if you are interested in Pionus, or not necessarily Pionus, but Pionus Care is obviously this channel, as well as Stella and Charlie, Parrot Bliss, and a couple of other channels available. If you are interested in general parrot care, if you're interested in training tricks, or parrot advice, please go check out David's channel, which is
The Parrot Teacher, and that's on Instagram and on YouTube, and also Best Behaved Birds. We obviously have a consultation service, but we also are trying to add more free services as well. Charts you can log behaviors on, little mini guides, and just stuff that can help you out as general sort of like, I don't know, extra.
So it is a very, very, very good learning resource. And like we have both said, please use these resources. We highly recommend getting your information and your knowledge from multiple different sources. And we're always willing to promote other channels that do provide good knowledge and good experience. But thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and whether or not it has provided you with some value, or whether or not you may have learned something that you didn't necessarily know, please leave us a comment in the drop box below or in the comments below, and I will reply to as many of them as I can. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.